Welcome back to another TFA Throwdown. Robbie Jeffries back with Akash, and we are going over Zeke and Saquon, two of the top running backs coming off in your 2021 redrafts. Zeke going at the 107, and then Saquon going at the 106. So they are back to back, both top 7 running backs right now for you. And I'm going to kick it off first, Akash. I gave you the floor first, but we're going to go age here before beauty on this one. I'm going to start off with kind of just recapping Zeke's 2020 and everything that went wrong with it, right? Because the Cowboys really just fell apart in the 2020 season. First, he gets COVID in late June. It kind of wrecks his training regimen. It goes all the way. He doesn't actually come back until like mid-July from that. So he's starting the season behind the 8 ball from just a preparation standpoint. Then the offensive line, they lose both their tackles, all pro tackles, as well as the starting center and Zach Martin. They all combined to miss 39 starts. So obviously that's not going to help your starting running back. And then the big one that we all know, right? Dak goes out in week 5 against the Giants, and the entire offense basically goes from a top 5 operating and scoring offense all the way to a bottom 5 offense. And basically Zeke was a top 3 running back through those first 5 weeks with a healthy Dak. So on top of that, Zeke was bothered by hamstring and calf injuries in the second half of the season. The one that we remember, he missed one game where Tony Pollard came in and did really well. All of that adversity, and this guy still finishes as running back 11. I think that's kind of the thing for me, that so much went wrong with his season last year, and he still managed to be a running back 1. And now if you fast forward to today, right, as we sit here in 2021, we have Dak back. We have a healthy offensive line. We have Zeke operating probably in the best shape that he's been in for a while, honestly. A lot of reports have been coming out. Hard Knocks has really shown that. So I think we're seeing Zeke that's ready to kind of return back to his prior years, but prior to 2020. We have an offense that's looking to get back on track like they were through the first 5 weeks of the season, going back to the 2019 season. And so honestly, if you look back at Zeke's history, he's just consistently a top 5 back. He has that upside where he's locked in with his volume, with his the efficiency that he gives you with that volume. So I'm locked in with Zeke being the pick over Saquon. What say you?
Well, my thinking is very much influenced by Pat Kerrane, at Pat Kerrane on Twitter. His very well written articles on RB and legendary upside. So what you want for running backs is you want seasons like CMC's huge 2019 season, Todd Gurley's huge 2017 season, Kamara's 2020 season. You want running backs that have tremendous upside of around like 24, 25 plus points per game. Zeke's never hit that in his career. Saquon hit 24 in his rookie year. In his first season in the NFL, Saquon hit legendary upside pretty much. He showed that he can be that. He has a history. He saw a 20% target share in year 1. He was a tremendous receiver in college. He's a tremendous runner. He has the upside of seeing 100 targets, basically. And that's what you want for legendary upside, because without 100 targets, you're not going to be able to hit legendary upside. Last year, we saw Derrick Henry rushed for 2,000 yards. He was the 8th running back in NFL history to do that, and he still wasn't able to finish as the RB1. That was Alvin Kamara, who had half the rush attempts, half the rushing yards, and still, because receiving matters so much, finished as the RB1. He had the legendary upside. And Kerrane writes in his article, Ezekiel Elliott finished as 2020's RB9 with 232 PPR points. He had a 2.7% win rate. That's very bad. For basically looking at best ball win rates, it's a lot easier to determine whether or not the draft pick was a good pick or a bad pick based on the ADP, because you don't have to worry about the variables of starting players, dropping players. You just have whether you win or whether you lose. And so on average in 12-team leagues, you'll see 8.3% or 1 out of 12 players win their league. So a 2.7% win rate is horrible. That is not what you drafted him to be. Kerrane continues to say, in fact, Elliott has just 1 season above a 10% win rate, his rookie season, which was his only season with an ADP outside the top 7 picks. Zeke Elliott, again, is being picked in the top 7 picks. He is being drafted as if he's being drafted for his safety, basically. You're saying, well, this guy's going to get the workload. He's got the workload for years and years. He's locked into the contract. They're going to feed him the ball. He can be a top 5 guy just based on workload, but he's not going to give you the upside that you want. He's going to get you, at best, he'll get you probably about 18 points per game. He hasn't hit 20 points per game since his prime back in 2018. He's been on the decline ever since. So with Zeke Elliott, the range of outcomes is he goes back to his old self, and his old self is pretty average for where you picked him. He's not giving you the upside that you want. And the downside is, well, okay, we were wrong. He is on the decline in his 2020 season. That was the first sign of decline, and he busts horribly in 2021. Whereas for Saquon, you have the legendary upside. You have 100 target upside. You could say he even has the upside to rush for 2,000 yards. He has tremendous upside. Even off of an injury, he's still a tremendous athlete. He's off the PUP list. And Saquon has the upside to break fantasy, which is what you want in the first round. Because if you want safety in the first round, you should just draft a wide receiver. There's an old adage that says you can't win your draft in the first round, but you can definitely lose it. That's absolutely not true. You can definitely draft league-winning players in the first round. But if you want safety, just draft a wide receiver. They bust a lot less. They get hurt a lot less. And Zeke is not my pick over Saquon.
Yeah, man, I will agree with your last statement there that you absolutely can win your league in that first round. And again, these guys are really close for me, and they're really close for drafters, and that's why we're doing this. I think when we talk about the risk for Zeke and what we're looking for potential decline, I think we have to look at the same for Saquon, right? There's a couple things that worry me in this offense that I want to touch on. One, I think we'll just get this one out of the way. It's him coming off of a major surgery, a major injury, right? We're talking about ACL, MCL, and meniscus. This is not your typical run-of-the-mill ACL injury. They come back within 7 months and they're going, right? He's been out a little bit longer than they expected. He is off the pup and he's starting to get back into practice. But we've seen a lot of backs over the years that they don't operate back to 100% capacity that first year back from an ACL, MCL, and meniscus tear. So we're thinking that maybe he can have that AP season where AP does the same thing and he comes back and kills it the next year. But other than that, we're looking at a ton of examples where these guys are operating at 70, 75, 80% of their former selves. Rarely do they get back to the 100% selves that very next season, which we're at with Saquon. So I'm concerned a little bit about the efficiency that we've seen from a normal Saquon, right? The beast that is. I'm worried about a little bit less of a workload, especially early in the year. They brought in Alfred Morris, so they're going to kind of supplement him. Instead of getting 20 carries a game, is he going to be down at 15, 16, and then just how he responds, getting back into game form, and then with the pads on, going full game mode, right? So I think that's a minor concern for me, where I'll have a look. Well, that's one risk, right? So the second one is his role in the pass game. I think you hit on it. That's the big thing that people say vaults Saquon above Zeke, right? Well, the problem is the team's changed a ton since 2018. His 2018 was fantastic. They don't have Eli Manning. They don't have the same offensive core. They don't have the same coach. They're a totally different team now, and the biggest piece of that is Eli Manning, I think. Eli Manning gave him 7.5 targets per game when he was the quarterback with Saquon in 2018. We saw that absolutely change when Daniel Jones took the helm, and now he's down to a 5.5 targets per game, and that was in his 2019 season where he played 13 games before he got injured that year as well. So I get the upside. We've seen it before, but we're talking about Kenny Galladay's now come to town. That's an alpha wide receiver. I get that he's hurt right now, but we're not expecting him to miss the season or anything. They drafted a wide receiver in the first round and Kadarius Toney. So I don't think we see that target share that we saw for Saquon in 2018. He's not going to get to 121 targets. I think we're talking about more in the realm of 80 targets. If he gets to 90, that'd be probably a good year for him with these other weapons, specifically Kenny Galladay be added to the mix. So the last thing is just that offensive line, man. I get it. He is a natural talent. He is a fantastic talent, but we still have to say that the offensive line situation is going to be one of the worst in football, if not the worst. We're talking about Andrew Thomas, who was a bust so far. He's only been in the league for 1 year, so I don't want to fully label that, but he was not good last year. Will Hernandez has not been fantastic since they drafted him. They lost Kevin Zeitler a couple years ago. The offensive line could be a 30 or worse offensive line. So if you're talking about injury risk, the passing volume won't be what it was in 2018. It's probably going to be capped a little bit more than it was. and then the league's worst offensive line or one of the worst offensive line, that top 5 pick just has enough risk at it where I'd rather go with Zeke, who I don't think he's in decline. I think we just saw so many injuries around him and injuries to himself and COVID that he will have a bounce back year.
In terms of injury risk for Saquon, like typical ACL return, you'll see between 9 to 12 months, and you said 7, but studies shows like around 9 to 12. So there's nothing wrong with returning in 12 months. The real problem is when you have players like Rashad Penny who are out for longer than that, if I remember correctly, and they're still limited, but Saquon, as we approach week one will be almost exactly a year removed from injury. And so he's on the later side. He's already off the PUP list. He's already moving well in practice. If you want to listen to reports and stuff, which it can matter if they're moving around well in practice after a big injury. And so with Saquon, I believe this could be me putting my blinders on maybe, but I believe he's back to pretty close to 100%. I've seen physical therapists talk about it, like Ball, and talk about it on Twitter. I've seen them talk about how Saquon, his athleticism makes it so that he's less likely to see a big decline post injury, and there's a solid chance that he returns back to normal Saquon. And even say 90% of Saquon, I would take 90% of Saquon over 100% of Zeke, especially when 100% of Zeke is still on the decline, and 100% of Zeke now is still about like 75% of Zeke's prime. To your point about targets, you're right. Targets to running backs are influenced by QB and coach, but they're also influenced by the running backs. The running backs who are really good receivers, they'll get receiving looks. He was a tremendous receiver in college. He broke all sorts of receiving thresholds for running backs. His receiving thresholds in college would have looked solid for a wide receiver, basically, or a tight end. But he's a running back. He saw insane receiving usage. He did it in his rookie season. Even in 2019, he saw a 50% target share, which is still really good. It's something that Zeke hasn't hit since 2018. So you talk about Kenny Golladay. Kenny Golladay, he has a build of an alpha receiver, but he's definitely not an alpha receiver in terms of target share. He sees around 20% target share every year, pretty much since he broke out in 2018 as a top 24 back. And then you have Evan Ingram, who saw a 22% target share last year. He's been around 20 for his whole career. Kadarius Toney, who I'm not going to label anyone a bust so early, like you said about Thomas, their guard. But, if I had to pick one wide receiver in this class to be a bust, it would be, so I'm not scared of that. And also target share is sticky. So we'll see that even if Golladay carves out the role that he carved out in Detroit, which he probably will, Ingram keeps his role, maybe even Toney gets a role, Shepard keeps his role, we'll still see Saquon maintain the target share that he commands. And he commands a good target share because we're looking at, if we see something close to 2018 Saquon, we're looking at like 18 to 20% target share, which is top 3 in the league. That's up there with CMC and Kamara in receiving. And if not, we're looking at like levels like maybe like something like Swift at the worst, like 12%. And we're looking at guys like Eckler at like 15, 16%, 17%. Probably if you want to be pretty mid-range of his range of outcomes. And so for receiving, I think there's definitely going to be a good floor for receiving, and there's definitely a really high ceiling for receiving. And as for injury, I think that the reports are good.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it'll come down a lot to that scoring, right? Like if these guys are going to be, in my opinion, similar volume, probably Saquon a little bit more passing, potentially Zeke a little bit more rushing. What my thought is, it might come down to that scoring offense and who can win that touchdown for rushing and receiving touchdown games. So we will have to see. But Akash, we will let everybody make their opinions off of our arguments here in the comment section. So please let us know who you thought won this debate. Do you guys like the Zeke side? Do you guys like the Saquon side? Make sure you subscribe to the channel because we have a lot more player versus player throwdowns coming your way. We'll see you on the next video.